Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Inshallah, today I wanted to just kind of go through a passage. Part of the beauty of the month of Ramadan is that we spend a lot of time with the Quran, and there's lots of different discussions, lots of different topics, lots of different, issues that we could talk about here. But Ramadan, it just seems very fitting that we kind of take the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we just kind of, if you want to call it that, just kind of take a little bit of a journey through some of the words and the pages of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and really be able to experience the Quran. And that's something that I was inclined towards, us doing here today. And one of the passages that jumps out at me and that I wanted to share is the month of Ramadan is especially a time of the year where we focus a lot of our energy towards really developing a relationship with Allah. By engaging in salawat and prayers and dhikr and tilawah and dua, we really try to focus our energy towards Allah. And one of the things that is very sorely overlooked when it comes to ibadah and worship, our spirituality, our relationship with Allah. One of the things about the human being is classical scholars used to say that there are three components to a human being. There's the aql, the intellectual, there's the jasad, the physical, and then there is the ruh, the spiritual. Classical books of tazkiyah typically mention there are these three components to the human being. The qalb, the spirituality, the aql, the intelligence, and then you have the jasad, the physical body. All right? The qalb could also be the ruh, like the soul. However, if you take a look at it, because of course this type of knowledge isn't necessarily just, that's it, that the door's closed on this, but this is what they understood about the human being. If you look at what we've realized and what we've understood about the human being, what we've come to understand and realize, especially over the last couple of 100 years, that human beings are a lot more emotionally complex than people originally understood. Human beings are very, very emotionally complex creatures. And we've understood that emotions are such a big part of, the human reality and the human existence. You can have somebody who is highly intelligent and educated, somebody who is deeply spiritual, somebody that is physically healthy, but just the emotions of a person can completely throw everything else out of whack. Right? If somebody is very sad about something, they can't get out of bed. They can't move, they can't function. So emotions are a very strong part of the human being. So what we basically understand is the human being is a four-dimensional creation. There's the physical, there's the intellectual, there is the emotional aspect, and then finally, and most importantly, the spiritual aspect. Then the month of Ramadan is something that is beneficial from all these components. Physically, it actually strengthens us, or at least it's supposed to strengthen us. Right? I remember I heard somebody say this one time, but it really struck a chord with me. And I think there's an element of truth to this. If you gain weight in the month of Ramadan, you're doing something wrong. I don't know how it's possible to not eat or drink anything for 16 hours a day for 30 days and then still find a way to gain weight. Those other 8 hours, all you do is probably eat for 8 hours straight. And then sleep for 16 hours. وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ ثُمَّ الْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. May Allah protect us all. Right? That'd be terrible. Worst Ramadan of all time. Right? So physically it helps you, it improves you. Inshallah. All right? Say inshallah. All right, give me some hope, all right, in humanity. So inshallah. Intellectually, we come here to the house of Allah every single day. We listen to the Quran. We listen to the lectures, the khatiras, the khutbahs. People are very motivated to go home and read a book, the translation of the Quran, the seerah of the Prophet. With modern media, a lot of people watch different series, YouTube series, that are done in the month of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, we're trying to learn. We're trying to educate ourselves. Number 3 is the emotional aspect. And again, emotionally, it strengthens us, or it's supposed to strengthen us. One of the things I talked about in the khatira earlier today after 4 rakats is the importance of bettering our relationship with our families. If I can make a couple of recommendations here to kind of follow up on that, because that's just a short discussion. So if I can follow up on that, it's very, very important to spend time with family. Spend time with family. A lot of times what we'll do is we don't spend time with our family members all year long. And then when Ramadan comes, we don't spend time with them and we use ibadah as an excuse. Oh, I have to pray. Really? You pray for 8 hours a day? MashaAllah. If you pray for 8 hours a day, then you're a wali of Allah. Right? But we're not praying for 8 hours a day. We just use that as an excuse. It's not like when Ramadan's not there, we spend a lot of time with our family. Right? So we don't spend time out of Ramadan and then we don't do it in Ramadan. In Ramadan, we just have a better excuse for not doing it. Right? No, spend time with your family members. Eat suhoor together as a family. Wake up together. Pray 2 rak'ahs. Everybody pray 2 rak'ahs. Everybody make dua. And then everybody get your suhoor together. And everyone sit down and have suhoor together. And everybody clean up together. Right? Family activity. Make it family oriented. Tomorrow's going to be Sunday. A lot of people are home from work. It's a month of Ramadan. So if you're not going to the masjid, even if you are going to the masjid, go to the masjid as a family. Bring your kids to the masjid for dhuhr, for salah, on Sunday. Bring them to the masjid. And if you're not going to be coming to the masjid, then you're praying at home, then pray together at home as a family in jama'ah. Spend time together. Right? And so make sure you spend time so that emotionally, the month of Ramadan is beneficial as well. And then spiritually. But the thing about spirituality is this. We sometimes become very, we sometimes are so insecure in our spirituality that we require, and it's almost to a detriment, we become a little too dependent upon ritual. Like ritual structured ibadah makes a lot of sense to me. I pray, it's a good thing, right? I'll come for Taraweeh, that's a good thing. I'll go attend a lecture, the khatira or the khutbah, that's a good thing, mashallah, right? But what we have to understand, the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us, ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah. Ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah. Dua is the essence of worship. It is ibadah, it is worship. Mukhul ibadah. It is the core, the nucleus of worship. And the thing that is a very common request that a lot of times people make about dua is that they ask, tell me what's the dua? Notice they don't say what's a dua, they say what's the dua for this. Like there's a fixed dua for everything. What's the dua for getting a cold? What's the dua for a job interview? What's the dua for this, for that? Right? And they kind of obsess because again, they need everything structured and laid out. But you have to understand that there is not a fixed dua for everything. There's not. And a lot of times in some of the books that you might have come across where they have a fixed dua for every little thing, those duas are not from the Quran or from the Sunnah. Right? Those are just duas written in Arabic. Yes, it's nothing incorrect about it. Its meaning hopefully is not wrong. You should look into that. But it's not necessarily a dua from the Prophet ﷺ. It's not like some official, sunnah dua. And this is done intentionally. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is necessitating. Dua is something where we have to learn to be intimate, to be personal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dua is the essence of our relationship with Allah. Look at every other form of ibadah. All of it involves dua. The Quran is full of du'as. The Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, a big chunk of it, a big part of it is the daily du'as that you read. The du'as throughout the day. Right? Salah is one big dua. Surah Fatiha is a dua. Everything is a dua. Right? So dua is the essence of worship. And the essence of dua is personally, intimately talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Being comfortable with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Being honest with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm going to use a word here that's very interesting. It's in psychology, it's really highlighted as something very important. Being vulnerable with Allah. Like being open to the point where you are vulnerable. Just completely opening yourself up and laying everything out in front of Allah. And talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a big part of dua. And that's something we have to learn to do in the month of Ramadan. Just like we learn to fast in Ramadan and pray in Ramadan and read Quran in Ramadan, we have to learn how to make dua in Ramadan. And making dua is not رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. I mean, especially if you don't know what you just said. Like you just memorized it out of a book, or you heard it on a CD and you memorized it, and you just sit down, and you recite something, Ameen Ya Rabbil Alameen. Why? Because I heard Hafiz Umar say it in Witr. Right? Ameen Ya Rabbil Alameen. Bas. That makes every dua automatically like good. Right? No. You have to learn to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have to learn that this month of Ramadan. So when you wake up for suhoor, you wake up 5 minutes before. So if you need, usually wake up 20 minutes before it ends, because that's how much time you need to eat. Right? And so waking up 5 minutes a little bit extra. Because those 5 minutes, I'm just going to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to go make wudu, I'm going to pray 2 rakahs if time permits. I'm going to sit down, facing the qibla, spread my hands out like a beggar in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm going to just put everything out in front of Allah. Ya Allah, please. You know, and it's really fascinating. Take a little self-assessment. How long can you just make dua? And, you know, inshallah, hopefully this is not the case here. A lot of people are very shocked to find out that the second they get started, oh Allah, please help me with this. Oh Allah, I need your help with that. Oh Allah, give them good health and forgive them and bless us and help us. And then they figure like, man, I'm like tired of making dua. You look at the watch, it's been 30 seconds. Khalas. That's all you had to do. That's all you have to offer. Right? We can, you know, God forbid tomorrow, it's that World Cup final. A'udhu billah. All right? May Allah protect us all. Right? So it's that World Cup final tomorrow. Right? We'll sit there for 2 hours. 2.5 hours. Not a worry in the world. Just like that. We sit there for hours. Dua, like as much dua as I can make. Look at the watch, it's been 60 seconds. Man, tired. That's a good day's work. Ajib, right? So we really, and that basically that lets us know that we have a problem. And I got to work on this. And this is my chance to work on it. 5 minutes before suhoor, every day, dua. 5 minutes before iftar, every day, dua. In the middle of the day, dua. During my lunch break at work, dua. So by the time this month is done, I am addicted to talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala multiple times a day. I cannot sleep until I have my 15 minutes of just dua. I can't sleep. When I wake up in the morning, my day cannot start unless I pray Fajr and have my 10 minutes with Allah. I need to talk to Allah. I got to get something off my chest. I need some help with something. I need to figure out something. Dua is very important. We got to learn it this month of Ramadan. So I wanted to share a passage with you that for me really captures the essence of dua. It's from, in fact, this entire surah has multiple examples of this, but I'll share one with you so that we get to kind of interact a little bit with the book of Allah. Surah number 21, it's called Suratul Anbiya, the surah about the prophets. It's in the 17th juz. So if somebody wants to grab a mushaf, we're going to go through quite a few ayat. If you want to grab a mushaf or open it up on your phone. Surah number 21, ayah number 51. We'll be starting from there. This is the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam is told multiple places in the Quran. Multiple different aspects and different parts of the story are told in different places in the Quran. This particular place, Allah tells us a story about Ibrahim alayhi salam a little bit earlier in his life. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ رُشْدَهُ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَكُنَّا بِهِ عَالِمِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we gave Ibrahim alayhi salam maturity, sophistication, intelligence, and also rushd also refers to prophethood, right? مِنْ قَبْلُ, from before, وَكُنَّا بِهِ عَالِمِينَ, and we were aware Meaning we were watching over him. We knew what he was doing. We were keeping tabs on him. Meaning it's a way of saying we were keeping track of him. We were taking care of him. إِذْ قَالَ لِأَبِيهِ وَقَوْمِهِ مَا هَذِهِ التَّمَاثِيلَ أَنْتُمْ لَهَا عَاكِفُونَ. When he said to his father and to his people, what are these statues that you show so much devotion and dedication to? What are these statues that you worship so intently? قَالُوا وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا لَهَا عَبِيدِينَ. They said that we found our forefathers worshipping them. قَالَ لَقَدْ كُنْتُمْ أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. Ibrahim alayhi salam said, well, that's not a reason. That's not a reason to do anything. لَقَدْ كُنْتُمْ أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. Ayah number 54. He says, then if that's the case, then you and your forefathers were all wrong. You were all making a mistake. See the sense, common sense. Apply it. Apply your intellect. قالوا أجئتنا بالحق أم أنت من اللاعبين. In ayah number 55, they say, أجئتنا بالحق. Have you come to us with some message, with some truth? أم أنت من اللاعبين. Are you just making fun of us? Are you just joking with us? Are you playing with us? Are you trolling us? Or do you have something to share? Tell us. He said, absolutely, I have a message for you. So you see, Ibrahim alayhi salam gets them to the point where they're ready to receive something. And he says, بَلْ رَبُّكُمْ رَبُّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ الَّذِي فَطَرَهُنْ وَأَنَا عَلَى ذَلِكُمْ مِنَ الشَّاهِدِينَ. Ayah 56. He said that rather your Lord and Master is the master of the heavens and the earth, and He is the one who originally created the heavens and the earth, the skies and the ground. وَأَنَا عَلَى ذَلِكُمْ مِنَ الشَّاهِدِينَ. And I am upon you, all of you, from the witnesses when it comes to this fact. Meaning I am a witness that Allah is the only one who created the heavens and the earth and created you and is worthy of your worship. And I'm also a witness to the fact I'm telling you this message very clearly. You know this now. تَاللَّهِ لَأَكِيدَنَّ أَصْنَامَكُمْ بَعْدَ أَن تُوَلُّوا مُدْبِرِينَ. So then now what I'm going to do is in between here, I'm going to interject the different parts of the story. So different parts, ayat of the Quran, different ahadith and books of tafsir, they fill in some of the gaps. So in the tafsir of Imam Qurtubi, for instance, rahimahullah ta'ala, he fills in the gaps with the aqwal of the Sahaba. The Sahaba told us what goes in the middle here. So the Sahaba explain, Abdul bin Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu particularly has multiple narrations about this. So he says that after Ibrahim alayhi salam starts telling them all of this, they don't listen to him, they don't pay attention to him. So then they just turn around and they ignore him and they walk away. So he says, Tallahi, I swear to God, I swear by Allah, لَأَكِيدَنَّ أَصْنَامَكُمْ بَعْدَ أَن تُوَلُّوا مُدْبِرِينَ. You turn your back and walk away right now, but I will show you the truth through your own idols. These idols that you worship, I will show you the truth through the idols. فَجَعَلَهُمْ جُذَاذًا إِلَّا كَبِيرًا لَهُمْ لَعَلَّهُم إِلَيْهِ يَرْجِعُونَ. So again, the narration says that there was some festival or carnival and everybody went out of town for the festival and the carnival. It was a little bit outside of the town. So when they all go out of the town, Ibrahim alayhi salam stays back, makes an excuse, and he stays back. When he stays back and they're all gone, he takes an axe or a sledgehammer. He goes into the temple and smashes up Judhadan. He breaks all the idols into small pieces, illa kabiran, except for the largest idol, so that they may come back to that idol and have to realize the truth of the matter. And one narration even says that he takes the axe and he hangs it from the neck of that largest idol. قالوا من فعل هذا بآلهتنا إنه لمن الظالمين. When they come back and they find all their idols smashed, they say that who did this with our gods? Because whoever did this is a terrible person. قالوا سمعنا فتى. They said that we've heard this young man, يذكرهم, he's always talking bad about the idols. يقال له إبراهيم, and I think his name is Ibrahim. قالوا فأتوا به على أعين الناس لعلهم يشهدون. They say, go and bring him in front of everybody. Let's make an example out of him. So when Ibrahim alayhi salam comes, we're at ayah number 62 now. قالوا أأنت فعلت هذا بآلهتنا يا إبراهيم. They say, did you do this with our gods, with our idols, O Ibrahim? Are you the one who did this? Did you do this with our idols, O Ibrahim? Ibrahim alayhi salam, trying to get them to open their minds and think a little bit, he says, بَلْ فَعَلَهُ كَبِيرُهُمْ. Why couldn't have the largest guy done it? The largest idol. He says, look, let's consider the facts. He's present at the scene of the crime. He's holding the smoking gun, right? He's got the axe. Why not him? Maybe all your gods had a misunderstanding, had a little falling out. And he's the biggest one. He took care of everybody. So why couldn't it have been the big guy? فَاسْأَلُوهُمْ كَبِيرُهُمْ بَلْ فَعَلَهُ كَبِيرُهُمْ هَذَا فَاسْأَلُوهُمْ إِنْ كَانُوا يَنْتِقُونَ. So ask your idols if they can speak. فَرَجَعُوا إِلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. In ayah number 64 here, Allah says something very profound. He says, فَرَجَعُوا إِلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. They looked deep inside. They reflected. They introspected. They looked inside. فَقَالُوا إِنَّكُمْ أَنْتُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. And they said, what if we are wrong and he's right? What if we're wrong and he's right? ثُمَّ نُكِسُوا عَلَى رُؤُوسِهِمْ. But then Allah says, then they turned back to their old ways. They turned back upside down. لَقَدْ عَلِمْتَ مَا هَؤُلَاءِ يَنْطِقُونَ. And they said to Ibrahim, you know that they don't speak. Why would you tell us to go ask the idols? You know they don't speak. Ibrahim alayhi salam says, well, then if that's the case, أَفَتَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ مَا لَا يَنْفَعُكُمْ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَضُرُّكُمْ. He said, then you actually worship other than Allah something that cannot benefit you in the least bit, nor could it ever harm you. أُفِّلْ لَكُمْ أُفِّلْ لَكُمْ. Like, you're truly pathetic and sad. وَلِمَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. And even more sad than you are these things that you worship other than Allah. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Don't you think? Don't you think? Now Ibrahim alayhi salam just shuts them all up. He makes them all quiet. Shows them how stupid they are. They get very angry. People don't react to that very well. So they say, حَرِّقُوهُ. That's it. Burn him at the stake. Burn him alive. وَانْصُرُوا آلِهَتَكُمْ. Help your gods. And they turn it into a propaganda. Because if you just tell we're going to take a young man from our own people and burn him alive, everyone's going to say, whoa, wait, well, what are you doing? So they say, no, وَانْصُرُوا آلِهَتَكُمْ. Help your gods. Meaning burning a human being alive is somehow helping your God. So do it. إِن كُنْتُمْ فَاعِلِينَ. If you're ever going to do anything in your life, if you're worth the oxygen that you breathe, then you will help your gods. And the only way to help your gods is to burn a man alive. Doesn't make any logical sense. But nevertheless, that's the nature of propaganda. So they engage in this type of propaganda. Now the narration says, Abdul bin Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala relates, he started building a fire. And people started coming from far and wide. And bringing stuff from home, clothes and wood and, old curtains and furniture, anything they could bring. And they came and they started throwing it and tossing it into the fire. It's almost like an offering to the gods. And they started throwing it in the fire. And this got so out of hand, the propaganda. And thousands of people were coming from all over the place, bringing all this stuff from their homes and feeding the fire. So much so that the fire grew out of control. It got so big, they had never seen a fire this big before. Flames way up high into the sky. It was so intense, you couldn't even get near it. It was getting out of control to the point where they had to stop people. That's it. Nobody brings stuff anymore. And the day finally came when they're like, now it's time to put Ibrahim in the fire. But there's a problem. We can't even get close enough to push him into the fire. It's too intense. So what do you do now? I know what we'll do. Let's throw him into the fire. Well, how do you do that? So they built a device like a catapult. We'll launch him. Toss him like a ball into the fire. Okay, so they get it all ready. They make this contraption. They take Ibrahim alayhi salam. They tie up his hands. They tie up his legs. And they pick him up and they put him inside of the contraption, the catapult. And they're about to launch him off. Abdul bin Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu says that when they put Ibrahim alayhi salam in the fire, in the device. Now you got to keep in mind, what is Ibrahim alayhi salam dealing with right now? It's the biggest fire anybody's ever seen. His hands and legs are completely tied up. He's surrounded by an entire kingdom of people that want to see him die. He's put inside of a device, arms and legs tied up, can't move, and he's about to be launched into the air to fall into a fire and burn to death. I mean, that's a very overwhelming situation. He's very overwhelmed. What does he do in that situation? Abdul ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu says that Ibrahim alayhi salam, he made dua. He made dua. He says, some of the du'as are related, that one the narration says that is the moment when he said, Hasbi Allah. Hasbi Allah. Allah is enough for me. Allah suffices me. Allah is enough for me. Hasbi Allah. Wa ni'mal wakil. And He is the best of caretakers. All I need is Allah. Another narration says he made a dua. He said, Allahumma anta al-wahidu fi sama. Oh Allah, you are the only one worthy of worship. Wa ana wahidun fil ardi ya'buduk. And I am the only one in this earth who worships you as you deserve to be worshipped. Ya Allah, please take care of me and protect me. And they come and they launch him. Now the device launches. Ibrahim alayhi salam is flying through the air, flailing through the air. He's tied up end over end, flying through the air, out of his control, until he reaches the pinnacle, the peak of his trajectory. And that's where he can feel himself now, gravity kicking in, and he can feel himself falling downwards. And when he starts falling downwards, he's looking down and there's this ginormous fire. It's like a beast, it's a monster. And he's staring down at it face first, and he's about to fall into this. And in that moment, he again says, Hasbi Allah. And then it's like time freezes. Everything stops. Jibreel alayhi salam comes to Ibrahim alayhi salam. Jibreel, the angel Gabriel, comes to Ibrahim alayhi salam. And he says, Ya Khalil Allah, O friend of God. All of the creation of Allah witnesses in horror at what is transpiring. I have been given permission, which means Jibreel alayhi salam went and took permission from Allah, saying, can I go and assist your Khalil, your friend Ibrahim? And Allah, he said, Allah allowed me, and then one of the narrations even mentions that go and help him if he wants your help. Because Allah knew his Khalil, Allah knew Ibrahim alayhi salam. And so he says to Ibrahim alayhi salam, Alaka haja, ya Khalil Allah, alaka haja. Is there anything you need? Now listen to Ibrahim alayhi salam's response. He doesn't say, no, I don't need anything. But he says, Amma ilayka fala. Amma ilayka fala. Do I need help? Yes, I need something. Do I need anything from you? No. I don't need anything from you. And he says, Hasbi Allah. Because Allah's taking care of me. I have Allah. Jibreel alayhi salam departs from there. Time resumes. Ibrahim alayhi salam continues to fall downward. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the next ayah number 70 from Surah 21, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Qulna, we said, Ya nar, O fire, kuni bardan wa salaman ala Ibrahim. Be cool and be safe. Be cool and be safe upon Ibrahim. Upon Ibrahim. Or is ayah number 69, excuse me. Be cool and be safe upon Ibrahim. And Ibrahim alayhi salam lands in the fire. The fall does not harm him. Miraculously. He lands in the fire and not a single hair on his body is burned. Not a single hair on his head is harmed. Nothing. Fire all around him. Sitting in the fire, but it doesn't do anything to him. Now I want you to consider, before I kind of wrap things up, I want you to consider something. Because this is the Quran, you're supposed to reflect on it. How many different solutions could have there been to this issue and this problem? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have caused it to pour down. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have sent the rain and caused it to pour down so profusely, so heavily upon the fire, it would have extinguished and put out the fire immediately. Done. Finished. Khalas. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have sent the wind, and the wind would have carried Ibrahim alayhi salam away from the fire. He would have landed outside the fire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have given Ibrahim alayhi salam the ability to fly. He would have flown away. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have sent a giant eagle, right? Lord of the Rings. Giant eagle come, it would have grabbed Ibrahim alayhi salam, flown him away to a safe place. Could it happen or not? Absolutely. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what people call the laws of nature, it's actually called the sunnah of Allah. What normal people call the laws of nature, it's called the sunnah of Allah. Sunnat Allah. Right? وَلَن تَجِدَ لِسُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَبْدِيلًا وَلَن تَجِدَ لِسُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَحْوِيلًا. Fire burns. That is part of the sunnah of Allah. Allah put that rule into place. Allah caused a miracle to occur where He changed the very nature of fire. Because when you turn directly to Allah, in a moment of difficulty and adversity, Allah will directly come to your aid and rescue. He will make the impossible possible. He will make the miraculous happen for you when you put your faith and your trust in Allah. That's the power of dua. That's the power of dua. That's the power, the opportunity that we have available to us. There's a narration, it's a weaker narration, but يَجُوزُ فِي بَابِ الْفَضَائِل. It's a weaker narration, but it blows my mind every single time I read this narration. The Prophet ﷺ, in a weaker narration, he says that the du'as, one narration actually says it's specifically for the ulama, one says that it's for the people in the path of Allah. One narration even mentions just the ummah of Muhammad ﷺ, their du'as are answered like the anbiya of Banu Israel. You know, when you read about Zakaria alayhi salam, and Ibrahim alayhi salam, and Musa alayhi salam, and Isa alayhi salam, and you read about their du'as being answered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our du'as are answered like that. That's the opportunity we have available to us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that ujibu da'wata da'i idha da'ani. I answer the dua of the one who makes dua every single time he or she makes dua. Allah saying, I always answer. But the problem is, do we make dua or not? How much time do we spend making dua? How much time and effort do we put into dua? This is a month where we have to learn to talk to Allah, to converse with Allah, to interact with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dua. And there's a lot more to talk about, like there's the whole fiqh of dua in terms of like how do you make dua, what are the etiquette of making dua, what are the things to avoid about making dua. And it's a lengthier discussion. Maybe inshallah one day we'll try to organize a program. I can come here and talk about that in a little bit more detail, or one of the more knowledgeable shuyukh here, Shaykh Farhan, Shaykh Noman, somebody could inshallah go through that with y'all. But there's a lot more detail there. Inshallah, maybe that's something for another day. But at the very least, just understand one thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always waiting to answer our du'as. We always talk about that. But we have to ask ourselves, how much du'a do we actually make? Think about how unfortunate it is that that opportunity is always there. That door is always open, but we never ever walk through that door. We never actually present our needs. We never actually have a conversation. And sometimes people have the trouble of yaqeen. You have to believe in your dua. And it's very cyclical because it's kind of tied into each other, because the more you believe in your dua, the more your duas are answered. But the flip side of it is the more you believe in your dua, the more motivated you are to actually, the more you believe in your dua, the more your duas are answered. And the more your duas are answered, the more you will actually believe in your dua. But the catch of it is that you have to make dua. Keep making dua. And one day, and sooner rather than later, I'll tell you from my experience, when you experience that miracle, where you asked Allah for something that was impossible, everyone told you it was impossible, everyone told you you couldn't do it, somebody even told you don't even make dua for it because it's not realistic, so why are you making dua like this? Of course that person is wrong, they don't know what they're talking about. But one day, when you experience that miracle, where Allah made the impossible possible for you just through the power of dua, your belief in dua that day will become so confirmed you will never doubt it ever again. But you can only experience a miracle if you take that chance. And what chance are you really taking? To sit alone and to have a private, intimate conversation with Allah where you say, Ya Allah, I need you. And I need your help. I need you to take care of this for me, Ya Allah. And the day you experience that miracle, your life is changed. Your entire process becomes flipped. Right now, we do everything else and then we make a little dua as a formality. Actually, we start off, we assume every means, like we go do whatever it is that we can. We don't even make dua ourselves. We go to the Shaykh and we say, Shaykh, please make dua for this. Right? That's what we do. Then the second step is we do everything else and then finally we make just a little dua as a formality. Ya Allah, please change it. But the day you experience that miracle, your process will become flipped. When you need something, when something happens, you will first and foremost go and make dua. And until and unless you don't make dua, you won't even feel like going and doing anything about it, because you know this is the best thing I can do about it, is to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about it. And the last recommendation I'll make here is be practical. Be practical. If you're the type of person who has a to-do list and you have your daily reminders and you like a little reminder list and you have your calendar set up and you have little notifications for every little thing you have to do and you have your time management app and you're one of those very structured, organized type people, that's fine. Set an alarm 3 times a day, 5 times a day, whatever times a day that says dua time. Yes. Have a list of du'as that you make on a piece of paper that you keep in your pocket. On a little note that you keep in your phone. Have a list of things that you need to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about. Throughout the day when you remember things, and you have your time set 15, 20 minutes at the end of the day, where you just sit and you have a conversation with Allah. Things that are going on throughout the day, keep typing them up. Keep noting them down. So that I have something to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about tonight. But build a habit of making dua during this month. At the time you break your fast, when you wake up for suhoor, at night before you go to sleep, during the middle of the day, when you feel thirsty, tomorrow's going to be a really relaxing day. You'll be home on Monday when you're back out at work. I don't know about y'all, in Texas, it's been 100 degrees every single day in Ramadan. Alhamdulillah. So there are some days you're out and about, you got to do some work around 4 or 5 p.m. That's it. You feel like you're going to just pass out. Just from thirst, from the heat. You're going to pass out. When you start to feel that, sit down and make dua. And see just experience it. But this Ramadan, make a specific goal to, inshallah, develop this aspect of your relationship with Allah, and this will solidify everything else in your life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all, conviction and yaqeen in our du'as. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answer all of our du'as. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to turn to Him and to talk to Him about everything in our lives. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly allow us to embrace a relationship with Allah during this blessed month of Ramadan. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanakallah bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.